Whoops. Hello, everyone. My name's Lars Peterson. I want to welcome you to Unlock the Powers of Mindfulness and Compassion During Tough Transitions. And I think all of us have had tough transitions in the last year or two. A little bit, just a short amount about myself, because I will most likely be using some examples as we talk. I'm a psychotherapist in private practice. Also do quite a few different kinds of sessions for EFR, Employee Family Resources. My background includes being a psychotherapist in private practice for about 6 years, and then before that, doing some things, mainly business, family business consulting, working in some organizations, working at ISU, etc. So most of my examples that I bring out today will be of clients, but they'll be well disguised, so you would not be able to recognize them. We have quite a bit to cover in a short time, so I'm going to jump right in. Apologies on the front end for my voice. Been battling some allergies, and so hopefully I won't be coughing or have any issues, but if I do, that's what's going on, and we'll just keep on moving. So these are objectives, again, for our short time. They're pretty aggressive, but we'll do what we can. Well, first of all, learn what makes transitions difficult, especially in our current environment. Understand a little bit about our basic wiring. This will be a model that any of you who have seen my other presentations will know, but it's every time I read about this model or actually talk about this model, I learn a little bit more. So we'll talk about that. What being self-compassionate means, as well as what being mindful means, and then how to use mindfulness and self-compassion to work skillfully with tough transitions. That's the bottom line. At the end, I'm going to ask you to consider what you will do differently because of this presentation. It doesn't have to be anything I said. It could be a bullet point. It could be a thought you had, something you remembered that you used to do. But that's really the goal for me today, at least, is to stimulate some kind of a change in a positive direction for each of you. Feel free to use the chat. Johanna from EFR will be monitoring that, so if you have questions as we go or comments, feel free to put those in there. So what makes our world challenging right now, and just a challenging environment for transitions in general? Maybe you've heard the term VUCA, maybe not, but all it means is our world has volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Volatility, I think that's pretty easy to see. Everything from it used to be easy to buy a car, now it's really hard to buy a car. It used to be easy to get remodeling done in your home, at least relatively easily. Now it's really hard to find a contractor or to even get cabinets ordered, because of this volatility in terms of supplies and people's busyness levels, stock market, politics, you name it. Uncertainty, definitely it's an uncertain world. When are we going to go back to truly normal, and what's that going to even look like? What is our new normal? I know a lot of us, including me, don't like that term, new normal, but we've had a lot of new normals. In fact, I had a client who owned a restaurant, pretty well-known restaurant in Des Moines, and he said, I'm so sick of these new normals. This was during COVID, because just this constant having to change. Complexity, definitely a complex world. Just with technology. So I have an iPhone. It recently died last Saturday. Just quit. I was on with tech support. They said, it's nothing we can do. You're gonna have to get a new phone. I use it for work, for clients. I have a separate line within my cell phone, but I use it. So I had to, I spent 4 to 5 hours on Saturday trying to get a new phone, trying to get it set up, and just all that complexity along with that. So there can be complexity there. Ambiguity, excuse me, there's that allergy voice. Those of you who, if there's anyone who's never been in the situation where they received a text or email and wondered, I wonder what they really mean, then please put something in the chat. I'd love to meet you, because I think all of us have experienced ambiguity with communication, let alone other ways. So we definitely live in a VUCA world. Let's talk about change now. That's what this is about, transition and change. Excuse me. For today, we're just going to keep it very simple. Something old stops, something new begins. Okay, sounds very easy, right? Just talking to a client this morning, and it seems like the clients that I have, I'm probably just extra tuned in, but it seems like they're tailor-made for presentations I'll be doing. This person was really going through a transition with a partner and wanting to actually end the relationship, although lots of ambivalence. Should I not? It's going to hurt them. What if I make the wrong decision? All of that going on with her in transition. So she's in the process of something old stopping, something new beginning, and very, very hard for her. She's always been on the other side. She's always been the one kind of left behind. So, but that's one form of transition that happens to all of us, or at least most of us. So these are some common negative reactions to transitions. And I'm going to use transition and change as synonyms. So in a way, change might be external, transition might be inside, but for today, we're just going to keep it simple and just use them in the same way. Oftentimes when there's change, we feel awkward, ill at ease, self-conscious. We focus on what we have to give up. So even for her, she was focusing on, yeah, but we have fun together and he listens to me and he really tries, all these things that we'll have to give up. Feel alone, even though others may be going through the same transitions. Again, very, very common feeling when we're going through a lot of change, like, geez, I feel so alone, even though maybe rationally or intellectually, we know we're not alone. We're not the only ones going through it, but it feels that way. And we experience a threat, meaning emotional threat, could be physical, but usually these days it's emotional. Fight, flight, freeze, some kind of threat. So these are common negative reactions to transitions or change. Sometimes there's actually, anticipation and excitement and all of that, but those are changes usually that we bring about that are, we see at least as primarily positive, moving from one home to another that we're going to like better, for example. So a little bit about how we work. One simple model, is not the only model, but really boils it down to 3 different systems within our body. Threat system, fight, flight, freeze, and threat emotions are anger, anxiety, disgust. When someone's driving, I'll pick on Johanna because she's on the call from EFR. Someone's driving, she's driving to work, someone drives into her lane. Even though I've talked to her enough to know she's a really good thinker. She knows how to analyze and to think things through. She is not going to say to herself, geez, I wonder if they're texting. You know what? No, it's 8 in the morning. They're probably eating. I mean, there would have been a crash 5 seconds ago. So our threat system is the strongest, quickest system in our body. And we have a negativity bias that goes way back thousands of years. If we mistake a snake as a rope and it's a poisonous snake, that's not good. If we think it's a snake, but it's actually a rope, well, yeah, we have some adrenaline and cortisol and our, amygdala has been triggered. We're okay though. So that's the threat system. That's just part of who we are. We don't get a say in, do we have a threat system or not? It's wired into us. We have a drive system. That's all about food, clothing, shelter, achievement, procreation, all those kinds of drive things. We live in a world that really values competitiveness, individualism, achievement, and sometimes that drive system, just like the threat system, can get stuck on. So both of these systems are very much on systems, engaged systems. The last system is a soothing system, safe, content. Maybe you felt that way with a partner who's very supportive, or with a pet. I'm a dog lover. I can be with a dog, not even my own, petting that dog, and I just kind of immediately feel contented and just good. Lots of nature, lots of ways that this can be activated. Going way back, again, thousands of years ago, Jane and Thor living in a cave. If if Jane didn't have this soothing system built into her and the baby also didn't have that, that would not have worked well for our species. So we have it built into us, and there's two ways we can access the soothing system. It's ourselves, through the way we treat ourselves, self-talk, touch even, and we'll talk more about that, how to access the soothing system, or other beings. Doesn't have to be humans, as we know. So those are the three systems that we're going to kind of keep in mind as we talk about this. So little dog here, a big dog. There's a Great Dane that doesn't live too far from me. And actually there's a Great Dane Mastiff that lives next to one of my daughters. It's 154 pounds, I think they said. If that dog comes into this dog's yard and acts in a threatening way, this dog is going to flee. May bark a little bit, but fight, flight, freeze, probably flee. 10 minutes later, half an hour later, that dog, unless it's really been traumatized, is laying down, chewing on a bone, sleeping, whatever. Okay. We, on the other hand, if someone messes with us or we have something happen that's traumatic, can think about that and think about that and think about that. We can have this overactive frontal cortex, this part of our brain that's great because we can, have technology like we have now. We can do all kinds of great things, but we can also ruminate about the past and we can think about the future. And that's where we get in trouble. So when this threat system, back to the red, fight, flight, freeze system, is activated, it makes us restless, hard to focus. We tend not to notice a lot. So again, a car pulls in our lane, we're like this. Everything we can do to get out of the way. We're not like, that car's in my lane, but boy, the sky is beautiful. Impossible. We tend to isolate and disengage. A lot of my clients will isolate and disengage. I had one yesterday who talked about that really strong need to isolate right now. Definitely tend to avoid and distract. Phone, Netflix, substances. Another client yesterday who I've been working on some habits around work. It's very easy for him to use his phone. He'll do maybe 5 minutes of work and look at his phone. And that could happen for a while. And so when we feel a sense of threat, we tend to avoid and distract, or we tend to do whatever we can to stay safe. We're not going to get outside the box. Okay. And we tend to spiral when avoidance is present. It tends to go down. So this alert, relatively calm sense that we're going to talk about creating here in a few minutes, we're able to concentrate and think much more clearly and creatively. It's very hard to think well when we're under a sense of threat. That's why the common advice is never make a major decision when you're really in a bad state, emotional state. You're not going to be able to think clearly. We notice more information that sticks. We tend to reach out to others more when we're alert and calm. And there's a lower level to distract. Why would we distract ourselves? We definitely are more innovative, and it feels good. So those are the problem with COVID and with the amount of change that we've gone through, and with out of the office, back in the office part-time, maybe back out, now in, and is it a hybrid, and just all the, and I was just talking to someone this morning actually who knows of someone who recently contracted COVID and was not vaccinated, contracted COVID, gave it to another person who was vaccinated, who had very mild symptoms, which is how it's supposed to work if you have been vaccinated. But again, so that's still, there's still this uncertainty about, well, what happens if you're vaccinated, and should I get vaccinated? For some of us, some of us aren't sure about that. So when that threat system is activated, it's really hard to think clearly, and it's been activated a lot, and it can get stuck on. That's the problem, is when it gets stuck. Trauma can also do this, can make the threat systems be stuck on. Beating ourselves up also can definitely take us into a sense of threat. I'll never be good enough. I'm going to get fired. Why did I say or do that? Oh, what was I thinking? Self-critic in the past. Or if they really knew me, or if they got to know me, or if I really, if I was really myself, if I didn't have this kind of mask on, they wouldn't like me. So that's self-critic and the social. And living in the threat system is an anxiety-provoking, hard place to live. So, what's mindfulness? It's really the opposite of the past, living in the past or living in the future. It's right now. So what are my hands touching? They're touching my desk. My feet are touching the floor. I can hear my voice. I'm aware of what's going on in my body. I'm looking at the screen. You know, that's different for all of us, but it's right here. It can be pretty simple, paying attention to the present with curiosity and openness. And we tend to, just for time, I took this slide out, but I had a slide in here from a person, Blaise Pascal, who had written something in the late 1800s about how we never live in the present. We're always either living in the future or the past. So this is kind of how our mind works. And part of that is to avoid threat. So we know what mindfulness is, simple definition of compassion: a sensitivity to suffering in self and others with a commitment to try and alleviate and prevent it. So it's not enough to feel, oh, that's really sad. It's also, and I'm going to see what I can do about it, or I'm motivated to do something about it if I can. Really interestingly, courage is a really important component of compassion. Scientific study has found that. Kristen Neff, who has arguably done more research on self-compassion than anyone on the planet, she's out of Austin, a university professor, and she's written a new book, Fierce Self-Compassion. And it's about that, she calls it the mama bear, could be Papa Bear, who say, no, this is not okay. So compassion can be very much warm and kind and caring in that way, but also strong. So that's compassion. So mindful self-compassion means we're willing to engage with difficult emotions, thoughts, and situations. We're not avoiding. Client I was working with last week has had a lot of issues with addiction for many years. And one of the things he was doing is not engaging, not wanting to tell me about some of the thoughts he'd been having about using and some reuse, and just really trying to avoid any really thinking about it, feeling that kind of thing. So we're willing to. We acknowledge things are hard, and we know, hey, I can't be the only person who's being hard on myself right now, or who's in a difficult situation at work, or who just had someone break up with me. I cannot be the only person in the world right now that's going through this. So there's this comforting, validating, soothing voice in the way we talk to ourselves, talking to ourselves in a way like we talk to a good friend, which we'll talk more about in a minute. But also it can be motivating, strong, and protective, like, no, you cannot do this to me. And part of mindful self-compassion is looking deeply. So when this person I was working with yesterday, a lot of what we've done is he tends to let himself off the hook pretty easily. Well, no, that's not being self-compassionate. Self-compassion is, okay, what's causing me to do, to do these behaviors that aren't working for me? And how can I get to the bottom of it and change it? Okay. It's not a free pass, like I just said. Easy or wimpy, definitely not. Going to make me selfish. That's a really common thing. Research is very strong. It makes people less selfish the more self-compassionate that they are. Definitely not a pity party. And it's not intellectual, as you'll see in just a moment. So there's a very felt sense to it, bodily sense. Just briefly, I'm going to go over some benefits of mindfulness. This is from now thousands of research studies. Anxiety reduces physical pain. I use it with clients who have chronic physical pain. It can be very helpful, not always, but can be. Greater effect tolerance, emotions. We can tolerate strong emotions more easily. More choice. We're not on automatic pilot. More in touch with reality. Oftentimes we can get so caught up in our head, we believe what our thoughts are saying. Improved relationships and more safety. Research in car accidents shows that something like 70 to 80% of people in car accidents report being at least partially distracted right before the car accident occurred. And it can prevent depression relapse. And there's a lot of research in that regard. This is a very brief, or a study on very brief 20-minute introduction, reduced brain activity associated with pain and negative emotions. I'm going through a couple of these kind of quickly now. I want to make sure we have time for some practices. But again, 20-minute introduction. And I think this might have been carried out at Stanford. I don't remember the exact university right now, but pretty striking finding. Self-compassion, again, has been studied a lot more in the last 5 to 10 years. People who are self-compassionate tend to be less depressed, have less anxiety, experience less stress, and definitely experience a lot less shame. That sense that I'm a bad person. Tend to experience more happiness, definitely more life satisfaction, definitely more self-confidence. When we have this self-critic beating us down, it's hard to feel self-confident. And physical health is even improved with self-compassion. So there's some, and we could have easily a whole presentation and more, a semester course on all the studies, what they say, the nuances. They're neither self-compassion nor mindfulness, the practice of, is a panacea, but there are strong documented benefits for each. So let's play this out. We'll use a sports example. I'm a baseball fan. San Francisco Giants, not many of people like me around Iowa, but and so this we'll call him little Joey. He's learning how to bat. He's actually knows how to bat, but he's having a really hard time right now. And so Coach A steps in, and Coach A says, Joey, you have so much potential. What are you doing, Joey? What's wrong with you? Are you not practicing? You can do better than this. Come on, Joey. Okay, so Coach A is harsh and critical, high expectations. Coach C comes in, oh, Joey, wow, you look pretty disappointed. Well, you'll get over it. Everybody goes through that. So how's your parents? Okay, hands off. We've probably all had teachers like Coach A and Coach C, or coaches. Coach B, Joey, wow, what's going on? Are you frustrated? Is that what's going on? Yeah, oh yeah. And so talks to Joey about it, what he's feeling, what it's like for him. Normalizes it. You know what, Joey? Almost everyone I work with as a coach, and I've worked with a lot of kids, goes through something like this. We'll get through this. And so kind of breaks it down, helps Joey problem solve, reminds Joey about how maybe fielding was hard for him at one point, and then says, because the compassionate inner self is a problem solver, you've been practicing at home? Okay, how could we get that to happen? What can we do? What are steps we can take? When I do this in a format where there's interaction, I ask the participants, who would Joey do better with? So far, pretty much everyone has said Coach B, that wise, compassionate coach, okay? The question for all of you, and possibly the most important question in the presentation, at least for those of us who can be self-critical, when you make a mistake, when you don't live up to your expectations, what kind of voice is inside your head? Harsh, critical, supportive, warm, but also motivating and problem solving, or just, let's watch Netflix. So, and we'll just go through this quickly. Coach A, these are what happens with Coach A. There's really not much accountability, not much changes usually. Coach B, very much problem solving, very much helps that person get back out of the threat into that calmer, and maybe also the drive system, that calmer place where they can think better, when they can do better. And Coach C, hands off, nothing much happens there. Neff and Germer, again, Kristen Neff, Chris Germer, they've written something called the Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook, which talks about how to integrate mindfulness and self-compassion in our lives. And it's actually a workbook that's very good, but becoming an inner ally instead of an inner enemy. So baby steps before we actually try a few practices. If there's a significant unhealed trauma in your past, neglect, abandonment, you may not feel comfortable with closing your eyes for long, and compassion may not feel good. Those are likely signs that it'd be really helpful to seek out a psychotherapist. Call, your EAP, call EFR, Employee Family Resources, maybe, if that's the case. If that's not the case, go ahead and feel free to practice what we're doing. But if at any time you're feeling too uncomfortable or some really distressing feelings come up, just stop, just ground yourself by looking around the room and feeling your feet on the floor, that kind of thing. So here's some informal mindfulness. What am I doing right now? We can be mindful eating, and actually there's a lot of research on eating being very, very effective, or mindful eating being a very effective way to eat healthier and to lose weight if that's your goal. So whatever we're doing, we're fully doing it. Labeling, use that a lot with my clients. Self-critic, back to what I'm doing. Self-critic, back to what I'm doing. Rather than having a chain of thoughts, why do I always do this? I've always done this. Even in high school, I did this. People, chain. Okay, labeling breaks that up. Walking meditation, feeling our feet on the ground, walking more slowly, at least at first, really tuning into what we're doing as we walk. Another practice is a compassionate friend. I use this with a lot of clients. How would I treat a friend? And yesterday, when I was talking with a client about that, actually a young guy just broke down crying and said, I had no idea I treated myself so poorly. And we were talking about how he treats friends versus how he treats himself. That's what really kind of ignited in him a recognition of, whoa, it's so different. So how would I treat a friend and treating ourselves that way? Mindful self-compassion break, we'll talk a little bit about it if we have time. Grounding, we'll talk also more about, and focused breath work. So, and any others that you want to put in the chat, and we'll talk about those at the end. So let's talk about the 5-2-5 and the 4-4-6-2. But not talk about, let's practice. I can't see any of you. I assume most people have their cameras off. I'm not even sure with this format because I'm not able to see everyone's camera if it's on or off, but feel free to turn it off if it is on right now. And I'd like you to think about something that's mildly to moderately anxiety producing. Not a 10 on a 0 to 10, but a 5 or a 6. Something upcoming at home, at work, maybe something you feel bad about that happened. Just notice that, notice your body. And now, find something in your room that's red, white, blue, something with texture, and something visually appealing, whatever that means. Now notice 2 sounds. And now notice your feet on the floor, what that feels like, your shoes, the floor, your legs, if you're standing, what that feels like, if you're sitting, the touch, the pressure. Notice your stomach expanding, contracting as you breathe. Allow your shoulders to drop just a little bit, if they will, and notice what that feels like. And notice your cheek and jaw area. Okay, 5-2-5. Now we're going to practice a breath work technique. Again, think about something that's moderately distressing, anxiety producing. I know it's hard. It's actually hard to marshal something up. It's hard to make ourselves feel anxious, but just anything going on that's causing some distress within you. Not a 10, 5, 6. And now this is all through your nose, and I'm going to actually, with my hand, lead you through this. And I really urge you to practice this. There's no way to know if this is helpful for you or not. If you have asthma or some breathing issue, don't do it. Stick with the grounding. Otherwise, though, I really urge you to practice this. So just go ahead and exhale normally. This is all through your nose. Now inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold, 2. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold, 1, 2. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold, 2. We'll do it just one more time. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold, 2. Just notice what's going on in your body. I've used this with a lot of clients, and 90%, I'm not saying you will have a good reaction with this, 90% say, wow, I just feel more present and calmer. So just a way to, again, get grounded, be present. So we're pretty close to on time. I know I went pretty quickly in there, but I wanted to get some key points across around how we're wired, what happens in times of transition and change, which means what happens is there's that sense of threat oftentimes gets amplified, and that threat system can get stuck on. We can get focused on the future or the past. Again, if it's a rope and we think it's a snake, yeah, that's too bad. If it's a poisonous snake and we think it's a rope, not good. So we do have a negativity bias. So we need to do things to make sure that we're in the present, that we're doing things that help us operate in that way. So the question is, what will I do differently as a result of participating in today's presentation? If you'd be willing to put something in the chat, that would be great. It'd be really helpful for other people to hear, and probably just a confirmation of you, like, I'm going to do this. And with that, I will turn it over to Johanna.
All right, thank you, Lars. As Lars mentioned, if you'd like to share any ideas for what you're going to do differently, please enter it in the chat and I'll share that with the greater group. I just wanted to remind everyone on the webinar today, if you have EFR's EAP benefits, we are available 24/7 to take your call. We provide in-person or virtual counseling sessions, telephonic financial, telephonic legal, and identity theft restoration services, elder and child care resources, and we even offer life coaching. So depending on what kind of you're going through, we most likely have resources, or we are a good place for you to start addressing whatever concerns you have in life. We have a lot of people contributing, so people saying they're going to be kinder to myself, being more self-compassionate. Someone says, thank you for recognizing how transitions affect us. I'm planning to do breathing exercises during my breaks. Definitely going to use the 4-4-6-2 breathing. One person said that they're going to use their phone to remind them to do the breathing exercises, setting timer reminders. Another one, this is really good, recognizing that self-compassion is not selfish. I really struggle with that. I'll treat myself well so that I can be fully present for others. A lot of people saying that they're thankful for the breathing exercises. People sharing the information with friends. Very good. So lots of great takeaways, and I think that was the best part of this webinar, is that it was so applicable in the moment, for the 30 minutes that we met today, but also really simple strategies that people can carry with them throughout the day today, into the day tomorrow. We have a person mentioning, I loved how the coach's example showed me how it sounds out loud. I'll be easier on myself. I love the how would I talk to a friend, which for me personally is something that I struggle with. I talk to myself much differently than I would talk to a friend or a loved one. And so, show yourself the same kindness that someone who loves you would show you under any specific, circumstance or situation. So this was great. I want to remind everyone that we have upcoming webinars on our website. So our next webinar is at the end of July, and it's about financial well-being. So please head over to the website to register for that. I did record the webinar today, and it will be posted on our website. So if you go to efr.org, under the menu heading Stay Connected, there's a tab that says Webinars, and you'll be able to see the video from this webinar, as well as the dozens of other webinars that we've done in the past 15 months. Many of them have been facilitated by Lars, and so if you liked what you heard today, there's a lot more out there from Lars on the website. But expect this webinar to be posted on the website by the end of the day tomorrow, and please share it with anyone that you think might benefit from it. Thank you, Lars, for your time and expertise, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Bye-bye.